When I first learned about Socrates, I was in high school, and I was fascinated. I thought he was brilliant. Until I got to the part where he was on trial. The court gave him a choice: deny your ideas and live, or stick to them and died. And Socrates drinks the poison. I remember thinking, really? That's the plan? You could just say, oops, my bad, and leave to argue another day. You know, you can still teach philosophy after apologizing, right? But he chose death. And that choice has haunted me, especially on Rosh HaShanah. Because here we are, praying to be inscribed in the book of life, not in the book of philosophy, not the book of martyrs, not the book of I proved my point, the book of life. The book of life, only that one. And the Torah is pretty clear about this point. Ubacharta b'chaim leman tihieh. Choose life. Choose life so that you may live. So, yes, we all want to choose life, and so we protect ourselves with all kinds of things and in all kinds of ways. Paranoia, claustrophobia, hypochondria, and obsessive ingestion of kale. That wasn't a joke. But fear is part of that mechanism. Fear is healthy. And so is kale. It keeps us alive. But being such a powerful and controlling emotion, fear can also take over our entire worldview. It can move us into survival mode. And survival mode is not the same as living. When in survival mode, we are just doing that, trying to survive. Anxiety is high, defenses are up, and we are ready to snap. And this sounds very familiar because our society is in a constant state of fear. Fear has become our status quo. Fear unchecked is like an autoimmune disease. It's meant to protect us, but it can turn against us, destroy us, and even kill the very life it claims to guard. So the question is not only, will we be written in the book of life? The question is, what does it mean to choose life? To live by the pursuit of life? And what does it mean to sometimes choose fear? When, on the other hand, too often, fear disguises itself as wisdom or prudence or survival itself. In 1820, a whaling ship called the Essex set sail in the Pacific. A giant sperm whale rammed the ship, leaving 20 sailors stranded in small boats, 1,000 miles from land. They had two options: head toward the Marquesas Islands, closer, more reachable, but they had heard rumors about cannibals there. Or head for South America, much farther, with little to no chance to have enough food or water. Fear won. They chose the longer journey away from the cannibals. Weeks later, starving, only a handful survived by eating the bodies of their dead crewmates. This is the story that gave birth to Moby Dick, for those that are attuned. They thought they were choosing life, but in truth, they were choosing fear. And fear dressed up as life. Fear dressed up as life led to death. That's the power of fear. It doesn't just whisper. It paints. It gives us stories in full color. A cannibal on every island, a monster in every single shadow. And when those stories drive us, we risk destroying the very life we meant to save. Like burning down your own house to get rid of the bedbugs. The Torah gives us other models of what it means to choose life over the paralyzing fear. Shifra and Pua, the Hebrew midwives. Pharaoh orders them to kill the newborn boys. But the Torah says, Batira'en amialdot et Elohim. The midwives feared God. They feared betraying their own souls, their morality, more than what they feared Pharaoh's wrath. Our tradition teaches one does not give up life except his own life, her own life, except for three things: murder, idolatry, and forbidden relations. Shifra and Pua teach us that to kill another human is to lose your own soul. They chose life, true life, even under the threat of Pharaoh's wrath. And then there is Nachshon ben Aminadav at the Red Sea. The Egyptians are behind. The waters in front. The people are paralyzed by fear. And that's a moment of better the devil you know than the one you don't know, right? Maybe. But Nachshon steps into the sea. The Midrash, the rabbinical literature, tells that the waters only parted once they reached his nose. He walked straight into uncertainty, not fearlessly. Not fearlessly, but with the deep understanding that turning back was not a real option. Fear disguised itself as a safer or the safer path. But it wasn't real. While it was terrifying and almost unthinkable, stepping forward, swimming through, was the only way to life. Paralyzing fear says, stay where you are. You might survive. Life says, you better swim. You better do. And you might live. Reb Salman Schechter Shlomi, of blessed memory, pointed out that the Hebrew language, has 3 different words for fear. And all 3 appear in our high holidays prayers. ובכן תן פחדיך, אדוני אלוהינו על כל מעשיך, באימתך על כל מה שבראת, בירוך כל מעשיך. I will translate myself, don't worry. And so, place your pachad, your terror, Adonai our God, upon all your works, and your eima, your dread, your deep anxiety, upon all that you have created. And let all that you have made stand before you in ira, irucha, in fear, or in awe. Explains Rabbi Salman, pachad, terror, a real danger you can point to. The kind of fear that makes you lock the door and protect your kids, sometimes necessary. Eima, deep anxiety. From I, a, and ma, what? Eima, fear of the unknown, the kind that corrodes, paralyzes, makes enemies out of shadows. Ira, the last one, is translated as awe or reverence. The awareness that we are not alone, that our lives matter, that our choices echo. This is the fear that opens us to God, to morality, to awe. So the question this Rosh HaShanah is not, will you fear? You will. We will. The question is, which fear will guide you? Which fears will guide us? The 4th generation Hasidic Rebbe, Rabbi Nachman of Braslav, also weighs into this matter, and he writes the very famous Kol Haolam Kulo, Gesher Tzar Meod, Ba'ikar. In the original says Tzar Meod Meod, very, very narrow. Ba'ikar, Ba'klal, Ba'ikar, Shelo Itpached Klal. The whole world is a very narrow bridge. And the main thing, he says, is not to be paralyzed by fear. The bridge is real, and it is narrow. It is scary. But don't let fear, pachad, paralyze you. And in the same teaching, he adds, every small step we take, every moment from materialism to holiness accumulates. All those tiny acts of courage gather strength, and they come to our aid in times of crisis. It's not the grand gesture that saves us. It is the daily discipline of not letting fear take the wheel. Because when fear is holding the steering wheel, immigration stops being a human challenge and becomes a dehumanizing existential threat. When fear is holding the steering wheel, a Turkish doctoral student in Boston can be detained by masked ICE agents simply for publishing an open end. And I can't hear that story or have seen those images without going back to where I was born, the dictatorship in Argentina. There, masked and unidentified agents pulling someone off the streets always meant one thing, and it was disappearance. We call that state terrorism, the rule of fear. When fear is holding the steering wheel, political violence escalates, and we struggle even to find the words to condemn it. When fear is holding the steering wheel, speaking one word outside of your party line makes you a traitor. When fear is holding the steering wheel, cancel culture thrives and academic inquiry declines. When fear is holding the steering wheel, even to speak clearly about the devastation in Israel and Gaza, to say that we want the bloodshed to stop, to end, risk us of being branded as naive, disloyal, or inhuman. When fear is holding the steering wheel, anti-Semitism thrives again in the public square and on American campuses. And when fear is holding the steering wheel, we cocoon our children, shielding them so much from any possible risk that when they finally meet adversity, they lack the resources to navigate it. Then they go to college and disagreement itself becomes a threat. And the result is more social anxiety, greater polarization, and violence. Fear always offers us vivid stories. It paints pictures. They are so sharp, they feel more real than truth. The Essex sailors, they saw the cannibals. We see worst case scenarios. And yet, if fear can be that vivid, then hope must learn to be just as vivid. In February of 2024, 5 months after October 7th, we met Maoz Inong. Both his parents had been murdered in their home on that day. I thought to myself, these men should be consumed by grief, rage, fear. But that was my projection. He told us the story of his parents with love and with the sharp edge of trauma. And then Maoz showed us a drawing, a pathway, a vision of peace. He said, not peace today, not tomorrow, but a road for his children and ours to walk one day. He said, we meet in the future, full of faith, full of hope, and committed to put in the work to make it happen. I'll be honest, I couldn't take it in at that moment. I was still too angry and too afraid. But Maoz could. He held both pictures. The horror that was and the hope for what it can be. He did not let fear imprison him. He chose to let hope be just as vivid as fear. He did not live in the captivity of the national horror and his personal tragedy. He chose to fear the consequences of an everlasting conflict, the harm that will be inflicted, the lives that will be sacrificed, and move into the freedom of faith and hope. He said, and I am paraphrasing, we will meet in the future, so let's start to walk in that direction. And then he said, let my parents be the last. We don't need anyone else to die. Fear and despair will always be convincing storytellers. But to choose life is to let hope speak just as vividly, and to listen, not fearlessly, but with an open heart. It is painfully true. We step into 5,786 this new year, carrying heavy challenges as a people, as a nation, as a world. And yet, even with the heartache and uncertainty around us, we must reclaim hope. So our unchecked fears are not the only voice we hear. We are praying, Zochrenu lechaim, remember us for life. And as we say those words, we too shall remember the imperative to make our own choice. Ubacharta b'chaim, to choose life. To choose life is to have the guts to put our fears on trial and to ask, what am I afraid of? What do I fear losing? What do I believe? Why do I believe that there is no other option? Why can't I hear other voices? Why am I so angry? What am I protecting? What can I offer? To choose life is to put our fears on check. And yet, we will find ourselves crossing narrow bridges. We will hear voices saying, this is a dead end. Turn back, give up, snap, attack. But in those moments, may we remember the holy disobedience of the midwives, the courage to step into the waters of uncertainty, and the possibility, because it is a possibility, the possibility of moral elevation even in the most immoral circumstances. We will be scared. Of course we will. But we will not forget to hope. And in hoping, we will be choosing life. And our prayers will be answered. Sochenu lechaim, we will be remembered for life. And so, as we step in this 5,786, let's let our values and our hopes take the wheel. And let's put fear where it belongs, in the back seat. Shana Tova u'metuka.